My name is Sean, and as most of you could relate, I was beyond grateful for it to be Friday. I work as a moderator for a large social media company, and this job can be mentally taxing most of the time. To cope with this, I have resorted to drinking. Understandably, I know this isn't the best approach, but you'd understand if you saw half of the things I did. I got home roughly around 6 p.m. and immediately went to grab a beer from the fridge. I live alone. As mentally taxing as this job is, it pays very well. So well, I was able to buy my first home at the age of 25. I had been sitting on the couch enjoying my much-deserved brew when I got a call from one of my buddies. He told me he'd be hanging out at a local spot if I wanted to stop by and have a few drinks with him. At that point, I had only drunk a single beer and felt well enough to drive. In no way am I condoning drinking and driving, I want to make that clear. I decided to hop into the shower real quick before heading off. Halfway through my shower, I could have sworn I heard a shifting noise, like when someone slides open a window. I peeked through the shower curtain, and through this thick steam I didn't see anything. After my shower, I made my way back to the room. I went to grab my phone, which I had lying on my bed, but for some reason it was gone. Apple Watches have this feature that allow you to ping the location on your phone. I clicked the button and heard the familiar ring coming from behind my closet door. Maybe I forgot it in there while I was grabbing my clothes, I thought to myself. I could feel my blood leave my body when I opened the closet door and saw a man dressed completely in black hiding behind my closet door, holding my cell phone in his hand. Shocked, I jumped back and through a shaky voice, I asked the man what he wanted and why he was in my home. He didn't say anything, however. Instead, he stood upright as he tried to intimidate me and gave me a nod. I was confused as to why he nodded, but shortly after I found out. I glanced back quickly, and to my dismay I saw another man standing behind me. Before I could even react, I was hit in the head and collapsed on the floor. A few moments later, I woke to the sight of two pairs of heavy boots right by my face. These men were going through my room, grabbing anything of value. One of the men was looking through my jewelry, as the other man went through my collection of shoes. I tried to stand up, but I was kicked in the ribs in order to stay on the ground. This felt like a nightmare, and I desperately wanted to wake up. One of the men sat me up and demanded I give them my wallet and any cash I had. I told him my wallet was on the kitchen counter, and I had $500 cash in the nightstand on the right side of my bed. The man grabbed my wallet and cash and ran out of my house. During the initial confrontation, the man hiding in the closet dropped my phone. I quickly found it and ran over to the window. I tried to snap a picture of their license plate, but they had already driven off. I called the police and filed a report with them. I was later informed that there had been a similar break-in only a couple blocks away. I was lucky, however. The other people were bound, beaten badly, and murdered. To make matters worse, it all happened in front of their children. The thieves made off with $500 cash, my wallet, a couple pairs of my least expensive Jordans, and a good amount of jewelry. Luckily, everything is insured, and I canceled my cards that same day. It kills me to know that I lost out on materialistic things, while someone else had to pay with their lives. Nothing ever came of this. The men were never caught. Those bastards got away with murder, leaving 3 children orphans. My drinking only got worse after this, and I developed worse habits. Trying to cope with the trauma I experienced, combined with the mental exhaustion caused by my job, put me in a really dark place. Shortly after, I sought help, and I'm grateful to say I'm 3 months sober, and I'm working at a job that is not mentally scarring. I still think about those children, and the pain they were left to endure. Those men were able to kill an innocent couple, but why did they let me live? I still carry the guilt of surviving every day.
My girlfriend and I had been dating for over 6 years, and due to some private stuff, we broke things off. Broken-hearted, I did what any single early 20s male would do. I booked a flight out of state. For my safety, I'll leave out the names of the country, people, and places I visited. After arriving and getting settled at my Airbnb, I decided to walk the 10-minute walk into town to have some dinner and drinks. After dinner, I walked the street drinking my life away out of a tall can of cheap lager. I had made my way out of the busier area packed with tourists and made my way to an area that was more than likely inhabited by locals. This area wasn't as well lit as the busier tourist area, but I made my way through and stopped at random bars to have a few more drinks. At the end of the main street, I stumbled upon a large building. Picture a large building wedged between two larger buildings, with two giant wooden doors that looked like they belonged in the Renaissance era, and a sign that was propelled off the top of the tall wooden doors. It was a huge, metal sign with no lettering or color. All it had was a mask that closely resembled one from the movie The Black Phone. Disregarding how eerie this place looked, I decided to try and open one of the huge wooden doors. They were extremely heavy. As much as I pushed and pulled, I couldn't get them open. I about gave myself a hernia. I leaned up against the door and could have sworn I could hear muffled, distant club-sounding music coming from behind it. I gave the door one final push before a light tap on my shoulder. I turned around and saw a woman. She greeted me in this country's language, and I told her I couldn't understand her. She began to speak to me in English and introduced herself as Gabby. Gabby was very attractive. She was about 5'7", thin, and had a very emo vibe to her, which attracted me. She told me that she worked at this club and it was member only. I told her I wanted to come in and have a drink with her. She laughed and warned me it wasn't just any club. Before I could let her finish explaining, I told her I wanted to go in and find out for myself, a decision I would regret for the rest of my life. Gabby unlocked the two massive doors. She strained as she pushed her frail body into them to get them open. We walked down this long, narrow hallway. The walls were brick and covered in graffiti. We finally made it to the end and were met with two intimidating bodyguards who greeted Gabby and granted us access through these two other small wooden doors. I couldn't make up the scene I was met with even if I tried. Picture a nightclub, but instead of happy, drunk partygoers, you're met with a place that is lit only with candles. The skulls and bones of dead animals, handprints on the wall that were pressed with black paint, and everybody there is covered in tattoos and wearing demon masks. I couldn't believe my sight, and I was even more horrified that I insisted that I wanted to be in here. Gabby grabbed my hand and we walked over to the bar. She orders us a couple of drinks. In no way, shape, or form was I drinking anything the bartender was pouring. Instead, I grabbed her hand and pulled her to the dance floor. I used any tactic to avoid drinking from that bar. We were dancing, and at some point, Gabby was approached by three tall, thin, gothic-looking people who were also wearing demon masks. I took this as my opportunity to run. I was only a few feet away from the door when I heard Gabby yelling at someone to stop me. I was met with one of the huge bodyguards who grabbed me and shoved me to the floor. Before he could cause me further pain, I kicked him right on the knee, causing him to collapse in pain. I stood up and immediately felt a sharp, burning pain on the side of my leg. I reached down and felt a warm, sticky liquid. It was blood. My blood. It turns out one of the other partygoers had sliced the side of my leg with a knife. It was getting difficult for me to stand from all the pain and blood loss I was experiencing. Luckily, no one else was standing guard at the entrance into the club. I ran through the two main doors and made my way through the poorly lit hallway. I made it back to the two huge wooden doors. As much as I tried to push them open, I couldn't. They were way too heavy for me. As I tried to open the two wooden doors, I heard a set of footsteps quickly approaching in my direction. I turned and saw Gabby full-on sprinting in my direction. Thank goodness I had a rush of adrenaline and mustered up the strength to push one of the doors slightly open enough for me to sneak through. I ran and ran until I could see the lights coming from the busy tourist area. As I limped over towards a crowd of people, I couldn't walk, much less run at this point. I reached into my pockets to try to grab my cell phone, but to my terror, it was gone. Instead of panicking then, I ran over to a group of people standing outside a bar and asked them to call the paramedics for me. After being treated by the paramedics, I decided looking for my phone was a lost cause at this point and decided to head over to my Airbnb to get some sleep. At about 4 in the morning, I was awoken by the soft rustling sounds of leaves being crushed outside the bedroom window. Instead of being a man, I cowered underneath the sheets hoping that whatever was out there would leave. I laid still for 15 minutes straight before hearing footsteps leading away from the bedroom window. I didn't have the balls to face the window and look into the eyes of whoever was out there. The next morning, I decided to finish my trip 2 days early and tried to get the first flight back home. I finished packing and grabbed my luggage and backpack. I opened the front door and I stepped onto something hard. I looked down and realized it was my cell phone. I knew I had it on me the night before and lost it at the club. My phone had been completely smashed, but for some reason it still worked and was surprisingly almost fully charged. Once on the plane, I looked through my phone and realized all of my contacts and pictures had been deleted, except for 2 pictures. One was a picture of me sleeping. The other was of me sleeping as someone pressed their hand against the window. I know most of you don't believe this story. Shoot, my family and my closest friends don't even believe it. But I'm glad I escaped from a possible satanic ritual that was disguised to look like a nightclub.
I was sitting in my living room one frosty cold winter night. I was enjoying the bliss of being home alone, accompanied only by a cup of steaming hot chocolate, followed by the roaring of a fireplace, and the nostalgic picture of Home Alone 2 playing on the TV. My parents had gone out for the evening. They had been attending my dad's work holiday party and wouldn't be home until late. I was mid-sip of my hot chocolate, and Home Alone was on the scene where Kevin breaks the pearl necklaces, causing the bad guys to slip, when I heard the creak from the boards of my front porch. A bit startled, I looked over at the window and could see the shadow of a man through the curtain. I figured it must have been a food delivery guy since my dad had promised to order me some food, but I instantly learned it wasn't a food delivery person. The man stood at the same spot for at least 30 seconds straight and didn't move a muscle. I had been sitting on the couch, shaking, and finally decided to set down my cup and pause the movie. This was all before doorbell cameras, and I didn't dare walk up to the window or open the front door. I made the insanely stupid decision to call out, "Can I help you?" The man was standing at an angle to the window and now turned to face the window completely. From where I was sitting, I was at least 15 feet away from the specific window. The man knelt down and began to try looking through the window. I repeated myself, "Can I help you?" The man responded, "I can't hear you. Can you please come to the front door?" I could have sworn I was sitting in a puddle of my own piss. I was scared to death at this point. I felt like this man had bad intentions. I responded, "Please leave or I'll call the police." The man stayed in the same position, looking into the window. We had curtains that were fairly thin and transparent. He was easily able to look through at me. He responded, "But I wanted to keep you company." I was chilled to the bone and reached for my cell phone. Again, I threatened to call the police. I even aimed the phone towards the window. The man must have hesitated for a moment before finally walking away. I gave it a few minutes before gathering myself and walking to the window and the front door to make sure they were both locked. Luckily they were. Through the anxiety and the PTSD, I finished the movie and decided to fall asleep on the couch and wait for my parents. I awoke about 3 hours later to a text from my parents telling me they would be home much later and to leave the hallway light on for them. My dad also apologized to me for forgetting to order my dinner. This only confirmed that the man wasn't the food delivery person and was there to potentially cause me harm. Admittedly, I was upset with my dad for forgetting to order me dinner, but I was also too lazy to walk over to the kitchen to cook myself something. Instead, I decided to fall back asleep. I could have sworn I heard the sliding door open at some point during the night. I figured it was my parents. But why would they be walking in through the back? I heard single footsteps approaching the living room. With the comfort of knowing it was my parents, I started to close my eyes again when I felt a huge, warm hand cover my mouth. I looked up and saw a man standing over me. I presumed it was the same man from earlier. I tried to scream, but nothing came out. I tried biting the inside of his hand, but he started to laugh and told me that he liked it when they fought. Too terrified to try to fight further, I laid still, knowing I'd easily lose the fight. I'm only 15 years old and weigh 105 pounds, and this man was at least 40 years old, over 6 feet tall, and well over 300 pounds. He started to reach over to grab my waist, and I'll tell you, I must have a guardian angel watching over me. I heard my dad yelling at the man to let me go and to step away. The man then responded that he was my boyfriend and was there to pay me a visit. My dad told the man the police were on their way, and within seconds the man ran through our front door but didn't make it far. Police caught him only a few blocks away from my house and promptly arrested him. My parents ran over to comfort me and assured me I was safe. That night, once my parents got home, they saw I was laying down on the couch and didn't want to wake me since I looked so comfortable. The reason the man was able to open the sliding door so easily was due to my dad forgetting to lock the sliding door after stepping out for a smoke. For my safety, I won't mention the man's name, but he was arrested for violating probation, breaking and entering, and assault. To make this event that much more terrifying, he was a registered offender, and he told the detectives that he planned on R-word me, murdering me, and dumping my body off a cliff. Ever since, I can't be home alone and get terrible PTSD whenever anyone walks past the window. Please call the police if you don't feel safe. Lock everything up, and you're never too safe in the comfort of your own home.